everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to unpack a massive paradigm shift that's basically hiding in plain sight. We'll be looking at a brilliant core premise recently highlighted by GeneCapsule, one that fundamentally changes how we view international commerce. So here's the bottom line. CBAM is no longer just a compliance story. It is rapidly becoming a full-blown global trade strategy. Let's look at why. Now, you might be wondering, are we treating a global trade revolution like a mere paperwork exercise? I mean, we all know how frustrating regulatory compliance can be, right? The endless spreadsheets, the looming reporting deadlines, just the massive administrative burden of it all. But GeneCapsule's analysis actually warns of a fatal business flaw here. If we only view this policy through the lens of frustration, well, we're totally missing the forest for the trees. Honestly, treating it as just a paperwork exercise is a huge strategic error that could cost you your market position.
Okay, let's dive into this. Section 1, the CBAM wake-up call.
To set the stage for this paradigm shift, let's just establish a quick baseline. The Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism, or CBAM, is a landmark policy designed to put a fair price on the carbon emitted during the production of carbon-intensive goods entering a market. Now, while that sounds highly technical, zooming out reveals its real purpose. It's about leveling the playing field, making sure that heavily regulated domestic industries aren't undercut by cheaper, more polluting imports. But stopping at that definition, that is exactly where most businesses go wrong. Moving right along to Section 2, the old compliance story. So this outdated mindset is what the analysis calls the compliance trap. In practice, this looks like an organization obsessing over filling out perfect emissions reports, or maybe finance departments treating these carbon tariffs as just inevitable costs to pass on to consumers. Or worse, leadership just relegating the whole issue to the legal team. Now, are these actions necessary? Absolutely, yes. But relying on them exclusively? That's defensive, it's reactive, and it completely misses some massive hidden opportunities. It's the old way of looking at global trade.
Which brings us to Section 3, the global strategy shift.
Now, what's really interesting here is how this dismantles the old narrative. Looking underneath the regulatory surface reveals a critical pivot. On one hand, we have the old compliance mindset. Here, CBAM is just seen as a cost to be mitigated, which naturally leads to reactive reporting, basically waiting for rules to happen to you. But the real revelation is the strategic mindset. This is about treating CBAM as a competitive differentiator. Instead of just paying a toll at the border, you proactively redesign your supply chain. You're building a cleaner vehicle, so to speak, so you bypass the toll entirely while your competitors empty their wallets. Let's look at the bigger picture in Section 4, redrawing the trade map. This internal shift isn't just about one company. It actually represents a massive reshuffling of the entire global economic deck. And here is the hard truth. Carbon leakage is no longer an option. It is a direct, immediate risk to market competitiveness. The old loophole of just packing up and moving your dirty production to countries with looser rules, that is slamming shut fast. Because goods are now taxed at the border based on their carbon content. Relying on cheap, high-carbon sourcing actively introduces unmitigated risk into your business. Actually, the math here is probably the most compelling part of this whole shift. If you stick to traditional sourcing, sure, you might find a supplier with a really low initial cost. But once you add in that high CBAM penalty at the border for carbon-intensive production, the result is basically total margin loss. Conversely, strategic CBAM sourcing means intentionally finding lower carbon materials. Yes, you might pay a quote-unquote green premium initially, but then you face a zero CBAM penalty at the border. The result? Market dominance. You are literally undercutting competitors who are still stuck paying massive tariffs. It's a real game changer.
And finally, Section 5, seizing the CBAM advantage.
And this brilliantly illustrates exactly how global business leaders can actively leverage this information right now. There's a clear, actionable path to transition your organizational thinking. Step 1, stop treating CBAM as a simple checkbox. You've got to elevate this conversation to the boardroom level. Step 2, redesign your sourcing for low-carbon alternatives. Seek those out, knowing it actively saves on border tariffs. And Step 3, turn compliance into your geopolitical advantage. By decoupling from high-carbon risks, you become economically resilient against shifting global regulations. You're turning a perceived burden into a very sharp competitive edge. So, I want to leave you with this question. Is your supply chain built for the old world or the CBAM era? The global trade map has already been redrawn, folks. The companies that thrive will be the ones who realize that carbon pricing isn't just an annoying fee, it's a strategic landscape waiting to be conquered. take a hard look at your sourcing, rethink those margins, and start treating CBAM like the global trade strategy it actually is. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I really encourage you to look deeper into your own operations with this completely new perspective. Catch you next time.